a lot, from the president to the mayor. A lot of people are saying it will make things better. But will it really? Well, we have two experts here to kind of take us through this process. Joining us this morning, Ted Morris of Brick House Security, an expert really on the technology of these cameras and what they can do, what they can't do, what the limitations are. And also this morning, we have trial attorney Eric Subin here talking about the law and sort of how these cameras might change the way that, well, police and the way that that trials go and civil cases go. So really, there's a lot of things to talk about. So good morning to both of you, first of all.
Good morning. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for being here. The first question I have for both of you, everyone has said this. There was tape in the Eric Garner case. There was cell phone video in the Eric Garner case. So how is a body camera different from a cell phone, multiple cell phones, multiple angles? So how does a body camera make anything different? Eric, let's start with you.
Well, from an evidentiary standpoint, it does not make a whole lot different. I mean, it'll show the point of view of the police officer and the facts and circumstances surrounding an incident of police brutality or the use of excessive force, but there's really no difference between video footage. Video footage is video footage. The difference really will come between civil litigation and criminal litigation. I mean, juries are seemingly showing an unwillingness to indict police officers for criminal culpability, but on the civil litigation side, when the victims are suing for monetary damages, there's still a willingness to hold the NYPD as a unit responsible for the actions of their agents. And then you've got video footage that oftentimes shocks the conscience, so it's going to be key evidence in weighing on that jury's, the civil jury's mind, I would imagine.
So let me just make this clear what you said. You don't believe that having these things out there is going to lead to any additional indictments if there's already video. You don't think that necessarily changes that part of the equation?
It's my opinion it doesn't. I guess it would have potentially some effect, hopefully down the road, if people are saying over and over and over again that this is continuing to occur. But if, in light of a video footage in broad daylight where a man's being choked to death, is not going to create an indictment with a very low burden, I'm not sure that if that cop, Pantaleo, had a body camera on, it would have led to an indictment in this case.
Okay, let me turn to you, the technology side of this. How is this camera different than just a person on a cell phone?
So anytime you've got one video, you've got one perspective. The more video you have, the better. Clearly, one video is not always enough. No videos is definitely not enough. And one of the problems we have is, in most cases, there's no video. And we've seen proven studies where 88% drop in complaints against police officers when the officers are wearing cameras like this. We've seen a 60% decrease in the use of force. So they definitely do have an effect. No technology can solve any problem 100%, but it certainly does help.
Okay, the technology has limitations. We know that. You've actually been here before. We've talked about limitations. So that raises some interesting questions. So we'll talk about limitations in a second, but I want to ask you about the questions. Okay, so say there's a scenario where, you know, somebody accuses an officer of misconduct, and then we find out, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hit the button, or it was out of juice. It was whatever. The camera wasn't rolling. How does that play in a courtroom?
Well, what the prosecutor or the person presenting the civil case could get is what's called a spoliation of evidence charge, where the judge would read the law to the jury and say, either you, the jury, can consider that either this officer intentionally destroyed this or failed to produce this, and therefore the video footage, had it existed, would have shown what's consistent with what the plaintiff is testifying to.
Okay, so even if there isn't video footage, if the thing is off for some reason, it still could play. I want to get back to you now, talk about limitations. We have one of these things live on the set with us here, and I think we can take the shot over there. You'll see everything that this thing is seeing, and there's various versions of the police cameras. There's the one that goes up by, you know, here, the camera's by my head here. I see you guys. As I turn my head, I see you. There's a version that's down here. Bottom line is, you see everything that the officer is seeing during the confrontation. So what are the limitations?
So ideally, officers are working in pairs. They have partners. So one of them should be able to push the button before an altercation occurs. Most of the officers we're working with that are buying these right now, they're in the habit of pushing the button when they approach someone who's intoxicated or looks like there could be a problem. When something happens unexpected all of a sudden, we're hoping that one of the officers involved will push that button.
How long does the battery last on a lot of these things? And can they record from beginning of the shift to the end of the shift?
The standby battery will last through an entire shift. However, the recording capability, when you push that button, you've got 2.5 hours of recording, which should be enough for the typical amount of interactions during the day, as long as someone pushes the button.
All right. Gentlemen, thank you so much for weighing in on this conversation. I mean, look, this is not the end of it. Obviously, the training, we've seen the training earlier this week. We're now seeing the officers going out there for the first time on the streets of New York City today. much more of this conversation here as we continue. And by the way, you want to weigh in, you have thoughts, go to our Facebook page, facebook.com/Pix11News. Hit us on pix11.com/Garner. I mean, look, it's a conversation. Guys, thank you so much.
Thanks.
All right.